attempt by the Ahmedabad School of Public Policy to bring citizens together and engage in civic dialogue and action. So for the longest time, I had this idea that as a city, Ahmedabad has a lot to offer, and it also has one of the greatest institutions in India, whether it is the IIM Ahmedabad, it is CET, NID, GNLU, IIT Gandhi. But there's a lot of knowledge that gets restricted to ivory towers and doesn't really penetrate the citizenry. And as a city, I figured that yesterday somebody coined this term AI, Ahmedabad the intelligence. So as a city, we are not really known for following rules. And we have this idea that how do we sort of get people to, become better citizens. And Ahmedabad Parlons is an attempt towards that, where we talk of policy, where we talk of systems, where we talk of governance, where we also dissent, because it's a safe space to do so. I'm also going to talk a little bit about two of the other organizations that we run, whose display you might have seen outside. For those who at least came one time, I think you had time to browse around and look at some of the posters they put up. Mazdoor.2 is an organization that we started during COVID, particularly when we saw the plight of the informal worker. And for the last 5 years, we've been running a campaign which is sort of related to the topic that we're talking about today, sustainability, because we realize that the effect of climate change on different populations is discriminatory. So even if we are going to talk about sustainability today, we are going to talk about climate change, we are going to talk about global warming, it doesn't really affect us. You and I can still go on sitting here, enjoying this comfortable temperature, not be outside, working in the sun. We can still go back our homes and be assured in the fact that you're going to sleep well tonight, to wake up in time feeling fresh, not having to struggle in a really small room or a house which is not well ventilated, which is where most of the Indian citizens tend to stay. If you look at our cities, we have a huge divide. So our campaign, the heat action campaign that we started 4 years ago, wanted to bridge this divide between the rich and poor, especially when it came to summers. So every summer, we run the campaign to sensitize citizens about heat, about effects of heat, how unequal they are. And we also encourage citizens to donate towards providing air coolers, umbrellas, and water bottles to people who don't have access to this. Particularly domestic workers, construction workers, security guards, street vendors, those who spend most of their time outdoors. How do we ensure they get a good night's sleep? By donating an air cooler. Air conditioning, of course, they can't afford, nor would we encourage that looking at climate change. Umbrellas for street vendors, and water bottles for people like construction workers and particularly auto drivers. If you go inside an auto, you will see they generally have plastic bottles wrapped in a lot of jute to keep the water cool. So that is something that you can do, and you might have seen some of the other graphics running here, which is part of our campaign. The other initiative that we run, and you might have seen the stall outside and a couple of clothes hanging. I'm not encouraging you to buy more, especially because we're not really promoting fast fashion. But India Recycles, this other organization that we started, aims to look at how do we create affordable markets, again for urban poor, while promoting sustainable change. So what we essentially do is that we collect whatever you don't really use, anything that you have at your home, in your office. It could be clothes, it could be shoes, it could be accessories, bags, it could be furniture, it could even be a used car. You can actually donate that to us. And while I said that to somebody did donate a used car to us, which we now use to drop and pick things. Our organization aims at essentially reselling these second-hand items to encourage consumption which is more conscious. And we also upcycle the garments and other products that we are not able to sell. So if there is a torn garment or a shoe which is not in a good condition, we basically make something out of it. And those are the products that you see outside. Whatever you see on display in the common area are again second-hand, hand-me-down clothes, which in Indian tradition we've always done, right? With cousins, with siblings, we've always sort of worn hand-me-downs. In fact, this is my sister's dress that I'm wearing today. But generally, outside of family, we are very, very conscious about buying second-hand because we have this purist mentality that, किसने पहना होगा और कौन होगा, कैसा होगा. So we don't really do that much. We still have judgment for those who buy second-hand. So this is also your cue to, whenever after the talk series, there's time you can go and browse. In keeping with our tradition of this talk series, we always, or at least I always prefer giving the vote of thanks in the beginning, especially gratitude in the beginning, than in the end, because by the time I this entire talk series, I'm going to begin by thanking anyone's sponsor, it's Director Emmanuel, and their entire team. So when I say team, because I think from Kanjan, who's here, their new person Pooja, a lot of volunteers, you see these kids in their t-shirts outside, and Ganpat Bhai and his team, I don't know if they are here, but the other people will be there consistently, even though the directors change every 4 years. Ganpat Bhai and his team are always there to ensure that we have lights in place, sound in place, even sometimes we need two of these slides, because we have translations going on, and they sort of put up with every demand of ours, including setting up this very cool stage. I'm very thankful to my team India Disciples, Team Mazur.co, or Team ASPC. They're the same people, the same 7 people working really hard, and we've been working for the last entire month to make this program a success. I think it's a success so far. We'll see how it goes today. I'm very grateful to some of our volunteers, particularly the ones who've been taking pictures yesterday and today. So we've got Kalpesh Bhai here in the audience. He thinks he's an amateur photographer. I think he's an experienced one. We've had Parth. He's passed around. Parth's a student from Nirma, and he's volunteered to take pictures for the event today. We've had an intern who took your registrations, again a student from Ahmedabad University. And I'm also very, very thankful to the audience who every year comes and supports us in a big way. Because I know it's not easy to sacrifice your, today's not very technically your weekend, but your evenings, because there's so much happening in the city. There are flea markets, and there is, comedy shows happening, there are concerts happening. So to sacrifice that, and of course the traffic. So to drive across town to actually show up here in time is something very, very commendable. Can I have a round of applause for the audience? And lastly, I'm very thankful to our donors, who shall remain unnamed, but people who for the last many years have been donating to us to make sure our operations are running and going. I know my family gets paid, so I can actually show up and do these things. So without further ado, we will start with today's talk series. Like I said, yesterday was more about the individual, the citizen. Today is more about the community, the group as a whole. But at the same time, I think, like my mentor Aruna Roy once said, that the personal is always the political. So I think whatever we might do, we can't detach the personal from the political. So even today's speakers, I'm sure will speak of their personal experiences in actually writing about change. I'm going to just set some ground rules, and this time when I say ground rules, I mean I'm actually going to enforce them. Please make sure your phones are on silent, and if I hear a phone ringing, I will summarily ensure that you are out of the room and out of our party. So if you haven't done it yet, it's very easy to do.
You should say you will upcycle.
Keep the phone, right? That's a great idea. I do need that. So if you have an iPhone 15, by all means, feel free to keep it on. In today's lineup, what we are going to do is, we'll have speakers come up here. They'll speak for 8 minutes, and for speakers, the ground rules. At 5 minutes, you'll be shown a sign that 5 minutes are over. We have this kid, thank you again, sitting here. And when you have 1 minute remaining, there'll be another sign, won't go here. I think more than me, Kanchan is going to actually do both sides. I know Dipani is making their face that we should have kept the talk series, but let's try this out. This might just be more effective. After the 8 minutes elapse, we will have Q&A for 7 minutes. And again, this is rules for the audience. Please make sure keep your questions brief. I'm not judging you. I know a lot of you are very clever, but you can reserve your comments for the speakers later. There's a lot of time. We have chai after every talk series, so you can have chai with them. You can chat with them. You're allowed to disagree, but at least in those 7 minutes are meant for Q&A. So please make sure you have questions ready to ask. I also would appreciate if you give the speakers a chance to answer the questions. then try to answer it yourself if there's an audience member asking. That sort of maintains the decorum of the stage. Alright, I think we are good to go. Okay. 7:07, we are right on time. I'm going to invite my first speaker, who I'm very, very excited to have here today, because she's a very hard person to catch hold of. So generally, every time I try to reach her, and this is how I picture it. I don't know, she always tells me she's not in town, but when I picture it, she's always like swimming with dolphins, or somewhere she's in the river, in the water, doing something or the other. Deepali Sutaria is a riverine ecologist. She's an urban ecologist as well, and she's a marine biologist who's worked in terrain across India in different parts. And she also works in city ecology with SET. I sort of got to know her when we did this lake walk a couple of years ago. And I remember I was very much sort of smitten by what she said, like smitten by her because she had this personality. And there was this argument going on about whether neem is a native species or not. Which, well, I didn't know at that time. But she's going to tell you more about it. But the debate was so interesting because we all thought neem is native. By the way, it's not, just what she defended. But when I heard that, I was so impressed. I was like, I have to get this woman on stage someday. So I'm very, very grateful that she finally found time to come today. And Deepali, welcome to the stage. Very
So I'm going to break the first rule, which is standing here. There are too many surprises in this session. First it was supposed to be a panel discussion, then it was supposed to be a talk, and now this. It's not working. Thank you for having me here, Renu. So
Just have it over 20,000, please.
can you hear me now?
I think it's
That's what I can use.
Yeah, so thank you for having me here. I have to confess it's my first time speaking to Ahmedabadis or in Ahmedabad. I've never done it before. And I'm glad I'm the first one speaking because my presentation is all about doom. Everyone else is all positive and full of color. So we'll start. Okay, so this is the topic that is these days are about, and I don't do sustainability. I don't study sustainability. I don't teach sustainability. Just to let you know. So how I was going to fit myself in these 2 days was something going on in my head for the past 6 days. Let's go to the next slide. Does anyone know this place? I'm sorry, it looks all purple. It looks like you're in Ireland, but you're not. This is in Shillong. It's a video of a water body very close to my house. Anyone knows this place?
The Shillong Lake?
Shillong Lake.
Yeah.
Next slide. Very close to my heart. This is a place that my mother and me used to go to every year. I used to document the native flora and fauna over here. It was a place of rest, not just for people living in Shillong village, but also for the cattle herders, the people taking their goats in, few people who want to drink alcohol and they want to hide in there, which is fine. So I used to go here every year to look for seeds because I run a native plant nursery, and those are my helpers over there from the village. Next slide. I think these are videos too, you should show them. So when we talk about ecology, when I'm an ecologist hardcore since I was a child, I think. So I really observe life all the time. And when you observe life all the time, all your life, and you see change happening to it, you are a changed person because your heart's breaking every day. Okay? But let's look at some beauty before I talk about that. Did you play the first video? This is right next to Shillong Kalau. That's a very rare climber. It's called Megoa oblongifolia, and it is always full of butterflies if you ever get the chance to ever see it. Next slide. I don't know if anybody knows Indian caper. So that's Kerala. Maybe. The Shiraz Talab was full of it. The next is just a walk, just at I don't know where it was, sunrise or sunset, but that's how beautiful the place was inside. It was what people these days want: forest, Miyawaki. But you know what? It's already there. You can show that little light there too. Who knows what that is? They carry how much weight of themselves, I don't remember the number now, very much, but you know why I've shown that. So there is life in the soil. Every time a piece of building is made, you have no idea how much life is killed in the process. What has happened to Shiraz Talab now? Next slide. Development, right? And that is the first time I saw it. It was beautifully cleaned, isn't it? This is OCD. This is like complete OCD where you want cleanliness. And what is cleanliness? I don't know where we got it from. It is not native culture for us, cleanliness. If you go to a village and you look at their houses, yes, they clean them, but they don't get rid of mud everywhere. They don't get rid of plants. That is not what they're cleaning. Next slide. And then they built, and everything was gone. There were old khejri trees, there were old desi bawal trees, there was close to 45 or 50 species of plants in that much area that you are looking at right now, and it's all gone. Lots of stories have ended over there. Next slide. This is what, I took a photo of this. I don't want to ever get off and look at it, but I took it just for this talk. They keep watering. Sustainability is where this comes in now, okay? Forget about the fact that we kill the forest. But now when you plant these things, you're watering them. Till now, all that dense vegetation full of life was never watered even once. And water is the main problem when it comes to sustainability in a place as dry as Ahmedabad is. So they have these plants, they die, they replant a few other things, and most of these things are not native at all. Plus, things will grow in the rain, but they'll remove them. I don't know why. Our dividers. They want to plant neem. Oleander. Champa. As if there are no other plants in the country. And then when wild plants grow in between, they remove them. I don't know. Those are the ones that attract pollinators. Those are everywhere. I don't know if you've read the latest news. The pollinator crisis has arrived in India. You think what they do in China, where they're actually trying to grow crops, people getting flowers to pollinate each other, that's started in India already because we don't have pollinators. Next. So, once upon a time, this place, also near Shiraz, was where the earth was soaked with rain. It collected rainwater every monsoon. Now, it has some new building coming up there. There were hares and blackbucks that were roaming wild. It's all gone. Next slide. This is a recent event that happened next to my house. That opposite building was built, wall was built, rainwater collected, it broke the other wall. There is no place for water to go. So now we are coming back into water and sustainability. Destruction happens when you stop the flow of water. Next slide. What is our best version of stopping the flow of water? Dams.
This really isn't the monsoon yet.
Look at this. After that house was built, we now have a lake every time it rains twice. This is just inside a society. Imagine all these things happening outside on the roads where people live, where dogs live, cows live, and where people have to actually go to work every day walking. So this also is happening only because now builders want to raise land, as if their land is not enough. They want to raise land and then build houses and mansions. Next slide. Where does all this water go? It would rather go into a river somewhere. This is our river. Of course, it's more Narmada than Sabarmati, sadly. But if you go to that stretch where the Narmada Canal enters the Sabarmati river, where you see the real Sabarmati also. Next slide. And where the river meets the sea, that's where I work also. That's where all life starts for the sea. The rivers bring nutrients into the sea. That's where the fish lay eggs. That's where the fishermen then fish and get their livelihood. Okay? So a river is not meant to be stopped. A river has to flow into the sea. And if you don't let it, then you know what's happening all over the world with rivers. You know what's happening in the northeast a lot too. So this area where land meets water, where river meets sea, is one of the most important parts of the water cycle. And the imbalance in the water cycle is what's causing a lot of your climate change impacts on direct human and other animal life. Next slide. But there are so many barriers other than our most notable one. And the pollution that goes ahead with it into the sea also. That's a huge problem. Next slide, just to show you our Ahmedabadi pollution from GIDC. You can play those slides. That's the water that moves from GIDC into the Sabarmati river bed in the minority area, just to make a point. Okay? Next one, that's the river, Sabarmati river bed over here. Look at this, it's purple, black, grey water. And people who worked on this particular case in Gascon, they face so much trouble from the mafia, is what I call it. Next slide. So how do we sustain life at sea is what the fishermen ask us. We tell them, we can't tell them to stop fishing, it's their livelihood. But we have damaged the entire water cycle. And when the water cycle is damaged, polluted, then everything keeps shifting and there's no way for fishermen to know where their fish are anymore. The upwellings don't bring up nutrients the way they used to. I don't know if people know these terms, but plankton are little invisible things in the sea that bring phytoplanktons lead to zooplankton, zooplanktons lead to krill leads to fish, and that's how the whole system works in the sea. So nursery grounds are gone. So what do we tell the grand old whales? How do we warn them of what is to come? Whales are already changing their habitats. You know, they're changing the areas that they use because there's no food left for them. Ireland is the latest case. Just off the coast of Ireland, the humpback whale tourism was very high. There are no whales there anymore. They're left. Next slide. This is where I see hope because I spend a lot of time with fishermen. He's describing the song of a humpback whale who comes under his boat. And they live in complete harmony with the animals. Okay? So this is where the hope lies. The people who are, whether they are Adivasis in the forest or fishermen at sea, they sense the system changing and they are the ones who are trying to build the buffers for themselves. Okay? Industry over there is causing as much damage, but these are traditional fishermen. My last slide, I think. Next one. Yeah, the massa. This is how we get reports from fishermen about where the whales are. I actually send videos to us. And we call the whales name Massa, Macharaja, Machababu. So they revere the whales, and we see this as they are indicators of climate change at sea, basically, the presence of whales. And that basically, just go to the next slide. So when you are sustaining sustainability, you have to remember we are doing it in an era of crisis. And the next slide will say this one last slide probably, I don't know. Yeah, there are all these dooms. All these doom factors are everywhere. There's biodiversity loss, there's pollution, there's ecosystems breaking down, host plants are leaving, pollinators are absent, soil, water, air interactions are messed up. There's high heat and fire. There's famine. Famine will happen very soon, sadly, because no pollinators left. Floods and disease and drought. Next slide. So we are talking about city level. We're talking about the poorest who will have to face the lack of it all, of course. But we are also very hopeful because there are people's movements and institutional movements that have now started. There are a lot of people who are working on ecological restoration, no matter whether they're biologists or not. Ecological restoration is about just the love for nature and to let it be. Permaculture also has that grounding principle to let nature do the healing itself. But we have to let it do the healing. Only then will sustainability actually matter. Otherwise, we are actually doing it at only very level, very small scales of clothes or food or recycling. But really, plastics just need to stop unless they're really required, isn't it? It seems the plastics are even have crossed the brain-blood barrier too. So what we are turning into, we don't know, honestly. And I'll end it at that, I think. I might have a cute photo at the end. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, bad. Not very happy talk. Any questions?
Anyone? Questions? Yes. Are there any monuments or are unique to Ahmedabad or like near Ahmedabad which have been completely lost or been completely extinct?
Extinct, we don't have. So when it comes to flora, the way plants distribute themselves over a landscape, we fall into the dry Aravalli kind of belt. So in my studies within Ahmedabad, there are a few trees I've seen that are very rare, that much I know. Something called Capparis grandis. I've seen two or three trees in Shela and one or two trees one tree in Thaltej. This is all modified landscape, the city one, Thaltej. But the ravines in Gandhinagar, if only the riverfront was not happening, we would have a lot more biodiversity. Over there, I saw one tree.
Do you think like getting AMC to impose like all the new buildings should have like local trees and local plants growing on them, or like promoting promoting like local flowers and local plants in from like to people to grow around their homes and all? Do you think that will help? Because,
Yes.
If
It certainly will. It needs to be like we have national greening guidelines from the center. And if you read it, you'll be very shocked. There are 15 trees written there, or which need. But we are trying to change that, and of course at the state level and at the city level it also needs to happen. But we are trying to change it from the national level also. That you plant trees that you don't have to water and will probably provide according to me and my mentor, just about every tree has some use. Every plant has some use, if you know about it. But at the policy level, the AMC needs to do that. In fact, I think the AMC and the Forest Department needs to sit together and get a good map of all the flora of the city and which ones need to be conserved and not just cut down. Yeah, I've seen a old Capparis grandis that is growing along with 4 other trees. We also have something called species complexes, they're communities in themselves. And then they attract birds, lots of birds and lots of reptiles and everything. So it becomes an ecosystem in itself, and I've seen all these things being just removed in Thaltej, opposite the Gurudwara, just in one go by a JCB, and the plot next to it is just full of construction waste. I mean, the construction in Ahmedabad.
Construction for less pollution.
Pollution, construction, I don't know what it is, it's a bubble. Most of these buildings are empty, it's just an investment mafia. There's no ethics whatsoever. Sorry.
Ma'am, you mentioned that natural flow between sea and river should be maintained. There were many Ganges, there were many Ganges river dolphins, right? So when you build big bridge like Faraka Bridge just before Bangladesh, what happens to the natural movement of big fish and that aquatic life downwards? Like what happens and what are the calamitic effect on them?
Yeah. So luckily, the Platanista gangetica and Platanista indica has received a lot of attention because they are very different from marine dolphins and whales. And both Bangladesh side and Pakistan side, Indus River and Nepal rivers, they all have them. They have been working on maintaining the flow of the water. So across the borders, they actually talk to each other, we need this level of water so that the dolphins don't strand and die. So they have been working on that. Of course, the politics that happens just now will ruin all of that, and so we will lose animals. But cross-border barrages and dam heights are changed just to maintain that level of water. It has to be done, otherwise we won't be able to keep the population.
Is there a repository or a source where we can get to know what species are native to what regions?
So there are two, in fact, one started this morning, yesterday only, that is just for the Western Ghats. It's called plantwise.org. And then there's another website called eraindia.org, Ecological Restoration Alliance, where you can become a member.
Right.
And we have a nursery list also, we have a plant list also.
So that applies to
Different parts of the. But just to be very specific, like in a place like Gujarat, we have different ecotypes. So if you go from Baroda southwards, it's a different ecology. If you go from towards Gir and all of that, it's a slightly different ecology. So slight changes are there in the complexes. And then if you go Bhuj and all that, then it's more Thar desert ecology. But there are small farm nurseries everywhere if people are interested.
Here.
I just wanted to understand, so whenever we hear of forest fires, they never talk about what happened to the animals. So I'm just curious.
It's very sad. So it depends on which animal, of course. And it depends on how fast the fire is spread. But a lot of birds die, a lot of nesting birds die, a lot of animals that live under the ground die. I think even in Canada, the forest fires, a lot of animals have died. The ones that can actually catch up or who have sensed it early on will go. But in my land, there was a fire in my first time in 40 years. It was caused by a human. But I know I found snake bones. One wouldn't think that a snake would die, but it did.
Question? Yes.
I think I'm aware of how much work around marine and research and conservation happens around the south of India. But I'm not really sure how much we do it in Gujarat, like at the coast of Gujarat. So if you can get a video or something. I won't say the name of the person who said this, but I'll say this person said that we want to turn Gujarat into an emerald necklace of ports. Now, if you want to do an emerald necklace of ports, with what integrity is a researcher going to do any research? I did my master's way back in Gujarat in the Gulf of Kutch in 2001-2. And after that, Gir Foundation has worked on dugongs in the Gulf of Kutch, but not along the Saurashtra coast, nobody has done. There's been work on turtles, if you're talking about megafauna. There is work done on the social aspects of fishers and fisher lives. A lot of NGOs have worked on women and the issues they face in fishing communities. But when it comes to marine research or ecological research,
Is there any potential?
oh, there's a lot of potential. There is a lot of, I study Arabian Sea humpback whales, and the main hotspot for Arabian Sea humpback whales is the Indus Canyon. So the Indus Canyon is the river, when it would have gone deeper lots of years ago, there's a trench, Indus Canyon, in the Arabian Sea, that's where the humpback whales live. There's no way for us to study it, border. So there are those kind of issues. But then again, the Gulf of Khambat is also very special. So again, Gujarat is very different. There are reefs, there are mangroves, there are mudflats, there are deltas, there are seagrass belts. So all the different kind of marine ecosystems that you would have are all there along the Gujarat coast. Yeah.
We're gonna take one last question. If anyone.
Yeah.
So what's your opinion on the crocodile life threat versus human life threat into the Vishwamitri just because of the last year's flood? Anything if you can elaborate.
So I studied in MSU Vakapella, and I can't remember it ever flooding that time. And I don't know what the riparian zone now of the river is, how much of it has been built, not built. But like our riparian zone in the Sabarmati, removing a riparian zone and the ravines is a very dangerous thing. So the floods that have happened in Rajkot also, I think, and in Baroda also, causing the crocodiles to be outside people's windows and all that is very shocking. And those, at that time, they have to be rescued, of course, and put into rescue rehab centers. But how to stop them from being out in the water is only the height of the It's the height of the enlightenment, no? So I don't know about the geomorphology of that and if it has been changed or altered. If it has been altered, it's probably a good thing to put it back how it was. I am not a fan of taking wild animals and putting them away just because they can be seen as a source of danger. Most wild animals are going to attack only if they sense danger, including dogs. Done?
I don't think we have done yet. In fact, right in between the Q&A, I realized that it's okay to break my own role today and sort of let this take more time. Thankfully, we started on time, so we could afford to do that. But I hope, Vikoni, that even though I know you wanted the Q&A and I did this, I hope you come back again because I definitely think this requires a much longer session. And there are a lot of us who would love to know a lot more about your work. So maybe like, I don't know, an hour or 2 hours. Specifically because one of the reasons why we do these talks is to exactly get experts to engage with people on knowing about issues that most of us don't have any idea. Or we are fed by a lot of misinformation or WhatsApp forwards that specifically in India we love to send to each other. And it's nice to sort of get clarification on some of these issues. Absolutely amazing talk, Imani. I'm so glad. And I didn't realize the first time you're speaking in Ahmedabad, you said. We are very, very privileged, I have to say. Can we have another round of applause? Vikoni is actually like a powerhouse of information, and I think 8 minutes plus 7 minutes, even though it was probably 25 minutes, doesn't do justice to her at all. Our next speaker, I've been sort of dabbling with the sequence, but I realized that because you spoke about water, I should also get another, if I may use the word Mansi, firebrand, to come and speak more about water as well. Dr. Mansi Bal, I'm going to pull out her profile, but even though I think I'll speak more from the heart than from the write-up, she's an environmental design expert, entrepreneur, researcher, TEDx speaker, and, okay, I'm going to ditch this. No, I need the
Save time.
I need the number. Don't worry, I'll also break rules with you. It's fine.
Save time.
So the reason that I keep inviting Dr. Bal again and again, and we have like so many conversations, is because I think she's one of the few people in India. One, she's worked in water bodies across the world, so there's a lot of knowledge that she comes with. And second, I think she's a very good storyteller. So even if you're a 6-year-old or a 60-year-old, she's able to sort of explain to you how water systems work, what is actually happening today, and connect it to not just water as in isolation, which is what happens in most of our conservation efforts as well, but connect water to land, to cities, to our everyday life, just like we find it with how our little houses become lakes in every monsoon. One of the very interesting things that Dr. Bal does is that she does these lake walks, where she actually takes groups of people to water bodies all over India, and you get to be next to the water body and understand what is going on there. And the fun part, by the way, is that after the walk, you get to take a dip in the water, which is a lot of fun, even though there are crocodiles inside, which is something that we did last month. But it was an offshoot of Vishwamitra, but we decided to take the risk because it was so hot, and I survived to live the tale. So you know that crocodiles are not all that bad. All right, with a huge round of applause, we'd love to welcome Dr. Bal here.
Thank you. And I see, thanks Banu for the wonderful presentation. Is this a climate hot or it's just a hot cake or should I stand here? And I have actually prepared a presentation about the humans, not about water. So, do you want to hear about water or about humans? Seriously? You want to hear about water? And that's where the problem lies because we don't want to talk about ourselves. Let me challenge all of you to think about ourselves.
Ma'am?
Yes?
Just 1 second.
Where is
It's
this?
here.
Okay, hi.
For the audience, we have 2 setups of mics here. So when in the question answer round, just raise your hand and we'll make sure that you get mic. Okay? Please just raise your hand and mic will reach out to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So we talk about us because we are 70% water, right? Agree or not agree? This is a garbage bin. Is this a garbage bin that we put everything inside here every day? That's our consumption. For putting everything inside or outside, we need to produce something, right? And that is where the impact on water and waste comes into picture. Next slide, please. Oh, nice, thank you. Okay, everyone knows SDG. I am assuming that this is a house of literates. SDG literates. Can you please have the light, a little bit light off if possible? Yeah. SDG literates. Which one is your favorite SDG? Anyone? Which is your favorite SDG? Anyone who is SDG illiterate in this house? I would love to have that person. Anyone who is SDG illiterate in this house? Let me ask again, if this question is very difficult. Everyone knows, right? Then you should know. Very good. So, a hug is pending. Okay, so let me ask, who all knows what is SDG 11? It's a quiz. That we are talking today, sustainable cities and communities, and I am not surprised if you don't remember SDG 11. May we have the next slide, please? Next slide, please. We could come back to this slide. Yes, and SDG 12, which no one talks about in this planet. But we happily have it sitting. There's no country in this world which has a funding and budget and policy on SDG 12, which talks about responsible consumption and production. What you put inside your body or outside your body for others, inside for yourself, you do the same with the planet. We will go through what we do inside and outside. And I say the SDG 11 is the holy cow that we want to achieve. Everyone knows holy cow in this country, right? Cow mother. Mother cow eating something on the garbage. We also eat garbage. Half of the food, not half, but 90% of the food we are eating today is garbage. Toxicology, pesticide, whatever. Anyway, let's have the better side of it. The holy cow that we want to achieve by 2030, the world wants to achieve by 2030. Ahmedabad also has promised a holy cow that all its water and all its waste will be 0, means there will be no wastewater, no solid waste by 2030. Aiming for the global goal. You know Gujarat model, right? And Gujarat model is led by Ahmedabad model, isn't it? So we have to do something, right? So the holy cow, yes, the holy cow and the hula hula bull, which is us, we humans, what we do, right? Let's see what we do. Can we go to the last slide, no, previous one? So this is where India stands today in terms of SDG in the world. And I can already tell you the data is skewed. We are very good nowadays in manipulating data, starting from not having the census of 2021. First time ever census was born. So we don't know how many humans live on in this country. We don't know how many rivers, lakes. Of course we don't know how many fishes, how many dolphins, how many crocodiles. If we don't know how many people die in war or a forest fire, or in Mahakumbh stampede, how will we know how many birds, how many cows, how many crocodiles, how many whatever. By the way, I live in Khaltej and I see the rape of Khaltej Lake and Sheelagh Lake almost every day for last 30 years. And I feel that I am raped every day because I am water, right? Next please. Yes, we stop here. How many of you think that you are consuming a lot that is not required for your body? I will raise my hand first. A lot we eat, right? Lot we consume. Get into your wardrobe and you will know your waste footprint and water footprint. Right? We have our fashion at least for next 6 generations, which means even if you don't buy a socks from tomorrow onwards, your 6 generations clothes you have already got. What do we do? Right? Because we consume, they produce. And this has been completely misunderstood by we consumers, because we are consumers. Either it is government or it is business. We are simply consumers. I don't know how many old people like me remember this ad from Onida. Yes, makers and the owners pride. The FOMO thing, right? So we all have to have something that others have. That brings us that 40% of the global waste is fashion waste. More than war waste, I am not in favor of war, but still. And 40% is building construction waste in this planet. Building means all infrastructure and building and all. Who are we doing it for? Humans. We don't make it for animals. Right? Even if we make it for animals, we make cage for them. Planetarium, aquarium, after killing the river, Bantara, taking the water out of everywhere and then feeding those elephants from Assam and then penguins from somewhere. And they are also suffocated and smuggled. Let me not get into that side of it. Okay, so more you have your occupation and lifestyle tuned to it, because we are also part of the producers. It's not we are only consuming. I go home every day with a nice bag. बेटा आज तुम्हारे लिए ये लाए, दीदी आज तुम्हारे लिए ये लाए, देखो जी आज मैंने ये गहना खरीदा है. Right? Do we need that? We don't ask it. Next please. So we have to understand that the more we are consuming, the more we are producing waste. Not only waste water, but also solid waste. If I give you the water problem of waste water, it will be, I really need 1 full day. 1 hour is not enough. But what is the biggest problem for me? That we are talking about climate crisis, we are talking about doing sustainable development goals, achieving blah, 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 blah. We are still not talking about the economic crisis that is linked, societal crisis and all those crises there. I want to just talk about the moral crisis we all are facing that is linked to SDG 12. The hula hula bull. How will we achieve the holy cow if we don't really control the bull which is inside me? That I want to have everything that others have. Next please. So we have actually in that situation of social hypocrisy. We want to talk about others. They have a glass of water, or imagine a glass of water. I drink 90% of it and sit in a very nice cozy room and talk about, oh, a lot of people are not having that water and I have to provide water for them. Or I have to provide food for them. These are the same people who already consumed 90% of the resources. And that is the hypocrisy crisis. I think we have more social crisis than hypocrisy crisis. And that is where we have to take cognizance of water and waste that we produce. Both solid waste and liquid waste. Next please. Are we actually aware of the footprint that we carry with ourselves? As I said, you have 40 years of, 6 generations of fashion, 40% of waste, 40% of building waste. Ahmedabad is second highest in vacancy rate. So how much more you want to consume, whether it is sari or whether it is bridge or whether it is train or whether it is even a small jewelry. Everything is coming at the cost of something else. And that something else is what Deepani was talking about, the other beings of the planet. Unless and until we are talking about we beings, there is no point talking about other beings. But our we being talking is also socially skewed. We talk about the vulnerable community. We are never doing naming and naming and shaming of those who are responsible for taking away the 90% of the resources of the planet. Today in India, we just look at the economic status. 10 people holding 50% of the nation's wealth. 10% people holding 70% of the nation's wealth. This is where the problem lies. And then everyone in the middle class wants to reach that ladder to become that consumer. In this process, even the oppressed are in the process of becoming the oppressor. Because we all want to become richer and richest. The richest person is also unhappy in this planet because he wants to go to Mars. What to do? There is some problem, no? We are not talking about us. Let us start next week. Let us start talking about ourselves. Let us discuss this issue of the haves. Let us stop talking about the have-nots. Let us start shaming and naming those who are responsible for the have-nots. Talking about have-nots is never going to solve the problem after you have already digested 90% of the resources by yourself. So I have a slide before, please. I have already talked about the discussing, debating, and denouncing. You really have to think about buying next time. I don't want to promote India recycles, but pre-loved is not a bad idea as I stand in front of you as a pre-loved product here. But it's important that we start talking about also 3 C's. Not only about discuss, debate, and denounce, but also talking about being curious. Why are we such peculiar species on this planet? This planet can survive without human beings, but not without any other beings. Why are we not using simple rules of common sense and conscience? So moral crisis to me is a bigger crisis than climate crisis. If you do not agree with me, I am really ready with my bouncing pads. Thank you so much. Facing back with some of you, but I tried my best to just go round. Okay, let's just stand here. And yesterday I was at Chili Kare, Bhubaneswar.
I did my PhD there.
And it was so dirty. No dolphins jumping here and there after paying 5,000 rupees for a boat. Yes. Any questions for me? And I would love if you argue with me or debate or disagree.
Questions? Anyone? Audience? Amazing.
Hi.
Hello.
So the question is not about the I want to argue, but how there is you raise very good points, but there are times where I have a conversation with people who I don't agree with similar points, and many times I'm labeled anti-national for my views. So how?
Very good. They are on the same board.
So at the end of the day, we'll have to agree somewhere to make some positive impact somewhere. But
Seriously?
I don't see that.
Seriously? We have to agree on everything?
Not everything.
To find a result? I'm asking you this question back to you. Seriously?
Some, I would
Then
say
Parliament should
basics.
not be there if you all agree with everything.
Not that way. I was saying that on the very, I would say the basic notions of, okay, there should be democracy. That thing is also being questioned.
Or democracy is in biggest crisis.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Or
Yeah.
the index.
Yeah. So, in this climate, how do we have a conversation with people we don't agree on such type of issues which have become extremely controversial by their mere existence also?
Absolutely. Very good question. Yes. Very good question. It is about us only. And I have a very serious problem in agreeing to people. And that's why I said, please disagree with me. Why do you want to agree with everybody? We don't need to agree. Only thing we have to learn is articulating our conversation in such a manner that there is a healthy conversation. We are not conversing with each other. We are really going either left, right, and center where there is khata. We don't have to take any sides, we have to use our common sense and conscience, and I don't think at the end of the day, I should really seek a certificate that I could convince 10 people the way I think. I should not really look at that kind of approach to my own life. I'm talking to you only. We don't need to seek agreement with for anything. I think we need to understand how to talk to each other. How should we respect each other's views? Because diversity and different discourses can be the only way to find solution to anything. And this is because for a long time our scientists have been talking about science, planet as a linear thing. And that's where currently I'm in a different discourse on women. We have to embrace complexity. We have to embrace disagreement. We have to know that everything is not about finding solution. Instead, we have to understand the problem and not seek solution of the problem. We are not understanding, but we want to find solution. So these are half-cooked solutions. And this is because we want to please our masters. And it starts from pleasing our parents, pleasing our teachers, pleasing our friends, and then it is pleasing our leaders, and then pleasing our master leaders. I think we must now learn, and it is part of the constitution, by the way, a good citizen is one who knows to ask questions, and who is asking questions is the best citizen in this country. And what we are doing from childhood, a child asks mother, parents their question, ta! Badtameezi mat karo. Our suppression starts from day one. We ask questions to our parents. We ask questions. See, we have a very serious misunderstanding that interrogation is not objection. Because in our culture, we have ingrained in such a way that the moment you ask question, the other person thinks that you are objecting. We have to change that mindset. Yes. Complexity is the way to life, not linearity.
Thank you, Dr. Val, for a very enthralling talk. What should businesses do for climate change?
What should businesses do for climate change? A very good question, but I don't run a business. I wish I was running a business, I would have shut down and take sannyas. Which I have anyway done in my own life.
Ma'am, the reason I ask is because you have criticized so succinctly the problem of consumption. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts on what can the
Businesses
biggest
do.
producers
See, very good question again, because we ourselves are consumers and producers. We don't realize it, right? And often citizens live in that vulnerable syndrome. हम क्या करें? बन रहा है तो हम use कर रहे हैं. And plastic is given that as a classic example. Plastic is there, so we are using. We are constantly in that mode of denial and putting the blame on someone else. But when it comes to your own life, aren't you actually working for your own career, your own beauty, your own health, your own well-being? Why not everything then for own self? I really suggest all of you to be a little bit selfish. Selfish in the good sense, not in the bad sense. Obsessed in the good sense, not in the bad sense. Because everything anyway we do as selfish creatures. Then suddenly when there is a social discourse, why do we forget that aspect? We have to be selfish in the right sense. If I consume less, if I spend less, conserving is also saving and earning. We don't realize in this society because we are taking the Western idea of more consumption, and now we are talking about 5 to 30 trillion economy. But at the end of the day, I have to answer to myself. Have I done right for my family, for my planet, for my society, for myself? If I am eating garbage, that is going inside me. And then I am not bothered about throwing garbage in the planet. So I think we are convened, and that is why I said moral crisis is a bigger crisis, because we live in a very hypocritical way. We conveniently shift our stance depending on what the question is coming to me. It's like playing cricket, that ugly game. You know, that kills people now. We have a hug.
I'm still waiting for that.
Yes.
It's very interesting to listen to you coming from out of India, even if we have been living here for 3 years. Since the beginning of today's session, I have a sense of guilt. I'm guilty.
Me too.
The opposite, it was the opposite yesterday. Because apart from being guilty, quite alarmist, the conclusion of yesterday was whatever we do at a single level might be a drop in an ocean, but whatever we do, when it's above the guilt, then we can take action. So the positive note of yesterday, showing examples of younger people, whatever the smallest action, that drop in the ocean, at the end can contribute to a better world. So I would like to ask you your position. It's very interesting. Those kind of data are very interesting in terms of education, in terms of knowledge, and I think the knowledge is the best way. But what to do? Is it the only solution? Is it make us feel guilty or blame whatever corporation, bodies, government, leaders? That's that fine line, and that your presentation is all about ourselves. But is there a way to make us feel responsible and not you?
Oh, thank you so much for this wonderful question, because finally at least France can start having a budget on SDG 12. Because no country has a budget for SDG 12 to be responsible country. Funny thing is that we want to achieve SDGs without working on SDG 12 or any policy or budget. But I can't agree more than what you have said. I mean, I'm in complete alignment with you. But at the same time, if we use the word guilty, it has a negative connotation. I would like to put it in a different way. The realization, the self-realization is important. And again, connecting your question with her question, I think we have to see that my contribution matters. We are in a constant state of prisoner's dilemma. If any one of you know this microeconomic theory, and it has this 2x2 matrix. If I don't do, if others don't do, what is the point of me doing? And my doing is not changing anything. We don't realize that everybody has been thinking like this for years, and we have reached this disaster. Because everybody contributed bit by bit. In the same way, the undoing or the de-development that I work on as a scholarship, we all have to contribute to the de-development, bit by bit. And I can't agree more than what Gandhi said, be the change you want to see. But everybody is sitting and waiting for somebody to change so that we can change. We are unfortunate that we don't have Gandhi today to make us change, and in a different way, but we definitely need the climate change Gandhi. We definitely need climate change Martin Luther, and many more names for that matter. We need Marie Curie for climate change, for anyone, Elinor Ostrom, I can keep on naming them. But important, and you also made it very nice, and I want to end with a quote from Jalaluddin Rumi. I hope everyone knows Rumi here. You may be a drop in the ocean, but in that drop you are an ocean by yourself. So I think we have to get out of this prisoner's dilemma syndrome. And again, it's a matter of me being happy. At the end of the day, I'm working for my own career, own health, own well-being, everything. So let us be selfish in that way also. And I was there with her in the last walk in Sheila. So we all have to think in that way, that my contribution matters. We cannot keep waiting for others. We have to consider ourselves as change makers and not wait for others to show the path. Of course, good leaders matter, and we have to look for mentoring. And it's a good idea to have good teachers and mentors in your life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mansi, for that. And I think next time I'm going to keep AHMEDABAD Parlons timing 7 to 11 p.m. I'm not joking. We've had audience also. I think the last edition we had audience. We wanted to end it because I had enough plans after this. And the audience stayed in the room till 9:45 till they were physically assured outside by the ADM staff. because there were so many questions, so many discussions. So very, very happy to have that, because I think as a forum, what Ahmedabad School of Public Policy is trying to do is exactly encourage this. Even though I was actually worried about people taking videos of speakers here, that what you were talking about being anti-national might just get them behind bars. I hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, very, very happy with the flow of conversation today. Our next speaker, and we've been talking a lot about water. Now from water, we're going to go to water and land both, become an amphibian. Sahir Patel runs the Metabolic Office. This is a company which deals with ecological design, architecture and planning. And they also run Carbon Cycles India LLP, which focuses on regenerative practices and sustainable development. As you can see, I suck at reading. Whenever I read something from a phone, I don't sound as well. So I'm going to talk about how I know Sahir. I met him a couple of years ago when they were designing. In fact, he was trying to do something similar to what I was doing, which is to create a group of citizens who might actually come together and do something for the city. And they were working, he and a very, very young people, in fact, they're quite young to run this. They are our representatives today of Gen Z, so to say. They were working on Thol Lake, and how do you actually restore Thol Lake in a way where it doesn't become another concrete disaster which has walkways and, pretty looking shops around it, but not actually birds, so to say, which is what happens to most of our lakes. They've also done some interesting work with the city government on designing green spaces. And one of the other interesting projects that he's done, which if you haven't gone yet, I hope he doesn't mind, but I'm extending an open invite. Near Thol Lake, he's actually built this forest called Hidimba 1. You can check out its Instagram page. It's a beautiful green space. In fact, there's also like this huge nursery there. They've got cows, buffaloes, Halabaru buffaloes, everybody there. And they make their own compost. And it's right next to Thol. A lovely place. And they also have stay. So if you want to actually go stay in nature for a few days, it's, again, I'm encouraging your business. Without further ado, because we are really running short on time, Sahir, over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So, sustaining what, right? I think sustainability as a concept is a dangerous trap. Let's face it, we're in the 6th mass extinction event on this planet, right? So, I think sustainability does two things. It allows, it allows people to take on guilt for themselves. It allows despair and the opportunity for people to internalize and get anxiety about it and feel despair. And at the same time, it allows corporations to label and package things in a completely different light and go on with their business as usual. So I think we should change the terms of how we are talking about this to begin with. So, if we are all very good model citizens and we don't use our plastic bags and don't print paper and all of that, maybe we make 5% of an impact. The rest of the 95% is based on the general terms by which we engage with, large infrastructure, industry, and so on. Can you go next slide, please? Next. So, seeing the world as it is, firstly, we don't see change. There is something called the shifting baseline. So every generation, the world as every generation sees it is different and it's in decline. The natural world is in decline, and let's say, compared to what our grandparents saw, we've seen a completely different earth. I think I'm sure, the older people here can attest to that fact, and therefore we see a different scenario every single time. And the second thing is that everything is non-linear. Like the amount of CO2, let's say, we emit on our way here to the lecture contributes about 60,000 times as much energy we consume to emit it. It captures 60,000 times more energy into the Earth system. So the impact is non-linear. It's not directly measurable. Next, please. So we are in a series of paradoxes when it comes to talking about sustainability, right? One is, let's say, the paradox of technology. If we talk about, the eco-warriors now are trying to shut down AI servers because that's consuming too much energy and too much water. But what if AI helps us, generate solutions for, future energy? So it's not as straightforward when you're talking about these things. Or let's say, what does it mean when there's different notions of competing sustainability? The sustainability of a business versus the sustainability of having humane labor conditions for our construction workers. Those are always at conflict with each other. Next, please. So again, when we talk about these issues, there's also tipping points in the Earth system that might lead the Earth system down various trajectories, and they're also all interconnected. So when we talk about this, we have to really be careful as to what we're discussing. And then there's obviously the paradox of scale. As a permaculture designer, someone who makes and designs food forests for people, I can tell you that there's no return to nature. If you were to go back to a state of nature, let's say our closest cousins, the chimpanzees and bonobos, there's about 30,000 of them globally. That's less than Ambawadi. So if we are all to live in that state, then that's how much our population would drastically need to reduce. And then there's the paradox of intervention. Can you go next, please? Sorry, one minute. Yeah, is this so? So if we're talking about massive Indian dams, and this is the map of all the command areas in the country, in blue are all large irrigation projects. What we're seeing is, even though we're damming all of these rivers, the irrigation of this much land is actually causing that much area not to overheat because of climate change and global warming. So there are all of these paradoxes inbuilt as well. Next. So I think since we're at the Orleans, I wanted to bring in a French theory, right, which is Deleuze and Guattari. They're philosophers from the 80s who talk about the tree versus the rhizome and how knowledge is structured and how it's understood, right? So the states generally view knowledge as well as structure as a tree. The problem is the state's mindset, right? The state thinks like a tree, hierarchical, top-down, centralized, but the world works like a rhizome. It is interconnected, decentralized, adaptive, and messy. So this isn't just philosophy, it's two different approaches of how states can think. Next, please. So the state thinks of water management from an impervious, frictionless, hermetic, laminar, perennial, permanent form. It thinks in terms of pipes and conduits and concrete and infrastructure. Whereas the traditional way of thinking is to do with permeability, porosity, percolation, moving through cyclicality, understanding seasons. So it's a different approach to how we can approach and engage with these issues. Next, please. So in Gujarat, we see this conflict in the form of large centralized infrastructure, big dams, that is state controlled, whereas the other side of that story is the millions of private borewells that we all use to have our water and our domestic and our irrigation needs. Right? So there's next. So that's a big dam. This is a big borewell. This is how much it goes down into the ground on average. It's like a little straw that goes in. So basically, the state's role is not to be a better tree in a way. Go next. So next. So this is Gujarat and the map of surface water change over the last 36 years. This is composited from about 9,000 individual data collections, and you see how all the things that are in different colors show how water is moving and changing in the surface of the state. Whereas what you see when you see a state map is a finite line. It's this or that. This is water, this is land. But actually, it changes seasonally, it changes through the years. It changes, because of some intervention, naturally or man-made. That's the blue part is Nal Sarovar here, and this is the Gulf of Khamba. Next, please. Next. And these are just some images of this dynamism and change. So this you see Gujarat greening because of the Sardar Sarovar project and canal project, which is the largest in the world. Next. And this is all the infrastructure that we've put in here. Next. These are the areas that are most vulnerable to and will be affected by sea level rise, which is all along the coasts and coming inland as well, because Gujarat has one of the largest coastlines in the country, and it's all very low-lying as well. Next. And this is all, that's Ahmedabad up there, and this is all the water in the region, how all the water flows across. Next. Next. Okay. So this is how Thor Lake behaves, right? Like the government has a blue water body marked out here, but this is how it behaves through seasons. Next. There. And this is the Gulf of Khambat. You see the shifting sandbars, you see the islands forming, organizing, reorganizing, changing over time in this fluid way. You see the flow of sediments in the estuaries, as Dipani mentioned, and you see how dynamic and alive this system is. And what is the response of the state? This. Okay. So, the state has to learn to think from a living systems perspective, right? Although, it's not black and white, and this might have some other unintended consequences, but it's not black or white. Next, please. Next. So, thinking of some solutions. Sorry, go one back. If we talk about Ahmedabad and we understand all the flows of water in Ahmedabad, next, we can start to break it up into smaller chunks, town planning schemes, into little flows of water. Next, we can understand where the lakes are. We can understand how we can connect them. Next, because they are all naturally hydrologically connected, and we can start thinking of what would happen if we reorganize this natural hydrology while respecting it. But we reorganize something that's also fit for human intervention and inhabitation, and we negotiate with it. Next. And we come up with different kinds of ways in which to organize our city. Next. And sorry, go ahead. Yeah, and here you see Makarba TP. You see the series of lakes and how you could imagine public plots organized in a way that that would be on the route of the water, and the water could flow through the plots. So the idea is that you don't obstruct the water. First, you let it flow so that there's some amount of resilience and you don't have floods. And on the other side, you try and hold back as much as possible. You deepen the lakes, you make them wider, you create more space for water and land to interact again as well. Next. And the strategy is to slow, spread, sink, store, and plan for water to maximize water where it stands. And instead of these two modalities of big dams and small bore wells, we create a horizontal way of managing at the city level or at a wider regional level. So an interesting thing about the permaculture ethics, these are what I call the permaculture ethics, is that they talk about people care, earth care, and fair share. And somehow this is the central idea that states could perhaps adopt in terms of how they do their dealing, and the intersection of these are the real meat of what interventions can happen. Next. And then there's this idea of donut economics, where you have a ecological seeding and a social foundation, and you never breach the two. So instead of talking about sustainability, you talk about concepts like an ecological ceiling and a social foundation, which you always have to kind of play within. Right? Next. So the state can shift from object-based thinking to process-based thinking. So stop building monuments, stop building mega projects like a Kalbasa dam. Stop thinking like a static tree, but a dynamic rhizome. A process that fosters regenerative processes. The state can create buffers. It can build universal safety nets. It can promote diversity. It can decentralize. It recognizes problems must be solved at the right level. And it can change the rules, right? It can reorient incentive structures and land use policy. It can reward regenerative practices rather than extraction. And it can become a better partner, right? It can partner better with civil organizations and people who are working along these kind of lines. And can sense its own territory better. It can read the land better instead of proposing big linear infrastructures. So I think the choice is between two ways of thinking. For too long, the state has acted like a concrete engineer, trying to pave the messy complexities of life. We don't need a state that builds bigger pipes and higher walls. We need a state that thinks like a gardener, a state that understands permeability, fosters diversity, that respects the wisdom of the local ground. One that understands that its role is not to impose control, but to create the conditions for life to thrive. And our task is not to sustain a dying system. It is to be brave enough to maybe transition to something else, something new, something that we're not yet aware of, and something that's unexpected but fundamentally different than what we have today. And facilitate messy, creative, life-affirming chaos of the rhizome, and adapt. We need to adapt. Thank you.
Take questions now.
So I guess after the two talks, this sounded a little convincing. However, is it like an optimistic dream or is it for real? Because I don't think Ahmedabad is a smart city. I think it's the smartest city. And the way you were talking, all I see is concrete. We are probably going to be the Olympic city as well. Really big, huge projects, a lot of big cars and big aspirations. Is this real?
Real in what sense?
So, do you really think that there's a scope for this to be implemented or anything of this is possible? Because the way I see the city and the policy makers, I feel absolutely like nothing is possible.
I think that it is possible because it's kind of a watered down version of what could be. At least the little PP schemes that we show. But it definitely is possible. It's not that complicated. And it's not that difficult. We achieve far more complex things and we do far more complicated things to achieve rather destructive ends. So this is definitely possible. The sad part is that most of the city is already urbanized, and when you have already an urbanized part, there's not much you can do. Once it's done, it's done. For the parts that are yet to urbanize, there is an opportunity. But I feel that along with this, the people who are who are the champions of sustainability today somehow lack the vision and the scale of vision that the people who are destroying things today have. So I think that's one thing that we need to gear up and get our act together in that sense.
Are you for the policy this through? Are you in the implementation team?
For this?
Yeah.
Yes.
That sounds better.
Hi. So, expanding on that question only, then I just came to know you are part of the team. So, have you got a chance to show your proposals to the town planning office in Gandhinagar?
I'm not in Gandhinagar, but in Ahmedabad.
Okay. But another, Gujarat, main office. Okay. And now you are okay. What were the responses?
So this is some of the slides that very few of the slides that I did show were part of those discussions. The rest, no. But yes, I think there is inclination for this because Ahmedabad and cities all over India, they have got these buzzwords too. They want to make a sustainable, livable, resilient city today as well. So there is a tremendous policy push for that, but people are struggling because the vision is not there. The objective solutions are not necessarily floating about as to how you would achieve that.
Your visuals were very amazing. So, did you develop the maps by yourself, or it was sourced from some?
I've developed all the maps myself.
wanted to ask about the visuals that you had. Was it using the satellite data and remote sensing, or using these QGIS and such mapping tools?
It's QGIS and using Sentinel-2 data and Google Earth Engine. It's an incredible supercomputing tool that sits on Google server, and you can just write a code for it and it will get you a map.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Sorry.
Okay, that would be the last question.
Hi, my question is regarding the Ahmedabad to Salem patch. So after COVID, there's a lot of construction that has happened and there are a lot of water bodies that are there. So when it's a cross-town situation, how does the planning of that work and what can be done to conserve those lakes? Because restoration and repair takes, once it's already started, it's a lot more difficult.
So what happens today is that when any scheme gets planned, there's only two components to it, roads and plots. And that's the fundamental two units that make up cities. Even if there are parks or lakes, they get confined to plots. They're never part of a network. And that's partly where the problem is, because for any ecology or water to work, it needs to be a part of a wider network. So those networks need to be established. So that particular stretch that you see, there's new wetlands that are formed because of the obstruction of the way of water. So and there are solutions for it, and they're typically engineering solutions which talk about trying to divert water from it's draining into the Sarovar, but they want to pump it 3 times and put it back into the Sarovar and dump it there. So, the state needs to start becoming a bit more sensitive to these nuances and respond to them better.
Shouldn't it also be the building lobby that changes the starting point of what they do? This needs to also be there, no?
So, as far as water management is concerned, what we observe while doing this work is that when some problems are better solved at a collective level, at a state level, that is, because it doesn't make sense. For example, I have a rainwater tank in my house. I have a brilliant rainwater harvesting system given by here, and I have to maintain it myself, and I cannot. The idea is, I would maintain it because I'm interested in that. But the way I see it as a solution, it's not for everyone to do. I think it's better addressed at a collective level rather than an individual level.
So it needs to be both ways, no? It has
Of course, it has to be both ways. It has to be horizontal, not here. But certain solutions are better tailored for certain scales, I feel.
Hi, sorry, I just wanted to say
I'm really sorry that I asked questions.
If there's any interesting projects that you guys want to do, we are open to more discussions. Please reach out to us. We do.
You can market yourself after the talk.
And you also market yourself. We are all here for good work, right?
Next time you organize an event, you can do that. Yeah. Thank you so much. Sahil, this was absolutely amazing. One of the things I love about Sahil's presentations, well, apart from the amazing visuals, is the interconnectedness of different systems, different ideas, not just from India but from across the world that he brings to the table. And this absolutely out-of-the-box thinking. Like, I never thought of that rhizome versus the tree example. I think it expressed it so well. And I dare say that because of the terminology that you use, the good thing is it doesn't come across very anti-establishment, even though it is. But it's covered so well with all these sort of words and the way you express it. We have done water, we have done land, and we have spoken of humans and consumption and the 12th SDG, where what are the humans going to do, what is it that we need to do. So our last speaker for today, and last but not the least because we also have a closing remark after that, but our last speaker for this particular segment is somebody who's worked in sustainable design for a long time. And interestingly, it's also not very top-down because she's worked with artisans on the ground, she's worked with students, she's worked with organizations, non-profits, communities. Somebody who's very innovative, and she heads the Department of Sustainable Design at Anand National University. She's also a very good friend who's worked with us and who's also been a source of sending a lot of interns who have worked over a lot of projects with India Recycles. So I'm very happy to invite Dr. Isha Roy. Not a doctor here? Okay. 2 more years? Oh, I'll put up with that.
Hi, good evening. This is like the last of the series. A lot of you guys have covered a lot of things that I've been wanting to talk about. So I'm glad that the president has been set. We've been working for radicalizing the way fashion design is been working. We're trying to change the way we are consuming or we are designing. So we're trying to design for a better world, more conscious world. And so
we have like 200 people listening in from other parts of the world. So for that.
Yeah. So we're trying to change the way we, design, think, consume, as well as trying to change the narrative around fashion. Fashion is like the way somebody pointed out that it is the second largest polluter, and after plastic, after oils and plastic is the second largest polluter. To give a context, so we are 70% water. If you're wearing a normal t-shirt and a denim, the average water consumption or water footprint is around 10,000 liters, which is 3 months of drinking water of a family of 4. So that's the context. And I hope you don't unsee it anymore when you try and consume or when you go shopping. I hope you don't unsee that. Next slide, please. A lot of brands, like the way my previous speaker shared, that brands have two ways. Either they actually implement something in their design, or they actually just change the packaging or the storytelling around it, and they go ahead with that. So they have green on their label, they have an effective storytelling, they say we produce or we do things very, very ethically, or we try and have a better supply chain. That is not true. A lot of brands need to be called out, and you as a consumer has the biggest power for it. You can call out, you can ask questions. Where is this coming from? How is there a transparency in somebody who's made it? Is there an involvement of a local culture or a craft that is highlighted or is like given the due credit? Or is it made from a sustainable material? So all of these things, as a consumer, one needs to call out and one needs to address this, and that is the biggest part because we are consuming, so they need to kind of comply with what you're trying to do here. Next slide, please. The ugly truth of fashion. So as we speak right now, there are 2 trucks. Every second, there is 2 trucks which are going into a landfill carrying truckloads of fashion and textile. The way we're consuming, there are hardly things that we wear and we give away because there are multiple factors. It goes out of trend. It needs some kind of repairing. It needs some kind of, or simply we just got bored out of it. So there are so many things. Renu could the kind of donations you probably get has a range of all of this, and this is the ugly reality right now. And there are coastlines of South Africa which are flooded, which are changing the cultural and the social bioculture of the spaces. That's happening in South America. In India, they are fueling we have a very effective mechanism in place. Panipat is a space where a lot of recycling is happening. Like the entire lot is shipped there, people rip it out, it's ripped off of its trims, the materials are segregated, and that gets manufactured into another material. Next slide, please. What we need to do is pause as a consumer, and that's been reiterated multiple times now. we need to pause. We need to pause the overconsumption culture. We need to, be, something when it's not in our sight, be it garbage, be it your clothes in your closet, when we remove it and put it out there, it is not our problem anymore. So we become guilt-free. So then we go on another spree of shopping sustainable probably, because they come with a nice story, and we try and include that, and we again fall in the trap of overconsumption. So guilt-free donation is something one needs to relook at. Fast fashion dopamine loop, I mean, I can't really address this much. Whenever you're feeling low, let's go shopping. That's the current trend, and very scary trend which is ongoing. Neglect of care and repair. Very, very small. We've come to a generation we teach, say, people. We teach at an undergraduate level. So starting from 17 to 21, they do not know the basics of any kind of repair. That was inbuilt in our ecosystem, in our houses. We had always had this kit which was handy, which had a needle, which had a couple of threads, and we would repair it. And that's no longer there. And nobody is seen repairing. Like in a house, people would repair something just they would beautify it, ornament it, or just simply fix it. That is no longer there. And outside also, we do not see these people in our ecosystem as well. Next slide, please. So, coming back to the same point, donation isn't salvation. So, please be very mindful of how do you pass it on, who do you pass it on to. It should have another life. So, be very mindful of the fact that if you're donating something, let it reach somebody who actually needs it and who can actually employ it into their ecosystem. So we want to propose a new cycle. Instead of buy, use, dump, we want to say buy, care, mend, and share. So that is something we really would like to implement. Next slide, please. One of the things that we try and do with really young adults is we try and create value of whatever textile that you have or whatever fashion garment that you have. We try and create a value. This particular piece is nearly 21 years old. This is a pacifier for a kid in my class, like a student in my class. And she got this, she's written a poem around it. This red and green bandhani dupatta, once a symbol of Gujarat's cultural richness, belonged to my mother. It was part of her identity, her pride. Years later, a torn piece of it was handed to me, not as heritage, but as a distraction, a toy. Yet I held on to it, not for the function, but for the feeling. So this student still has this particular piece of cloth and she's she's used it as a comfort piece, and she still relates to it. And she wrote a very nice, this is just a small abstract from it. So we try and engage with students to create value around why do we need to repair this? Why do we need to fix this? Why we should not let this go? Why should we not, we need to preserve it. So we try and do this exercise or engagements with students, and that is an engagement that we all need to do with ourselves as well. Can we give this a second life? Can we preserve this? Can we make it in another shape or form that we can still wear it? So we explore the emotional relationship with fabric. Next slide, please. And when we do this exercise, we get a lot of these keywords, and then these keywords are very aspiring for them. This is what feels like emotional connect feels for them, and they try to incorporate their design for the future, incorporating all of these in their design process. So it makes it more humbler, more connected, more emotionally connected. Next slide, please. And we also have, we try and do, so repairing is something that I've been advocating. It's also my area of my PhD research work. We're looking at the repairing cultures and the craftspersons related to it. So we want to try, we host a lot of these workshops in and around the university so that we can encourage this culture. We try and do this pop-up repair cafes. Alright. We do a lot of this repair cafes, so that we try and build this culture back. There is a lot of movement that is going around in the UK and the Europe where they're talking about repairing and putting it back. Next slide, please. So I love this quote. We aren't repurposing and mending because we cannot afford to buy something new, but we're doing it because we can't afford to throw anything away. We don't have another planet anymore. So whatever we do is right here, and we need to kind of act now. Like the way Mansi ma'am kind of pointed out, we have 6 generations of clothes with us. We really don't need anything anymore. Next slide. So we try and incorporate design for longevity, design for disassembly, design using a single origin materials. If a material is of, if it is a mixed material, it becomes very difficult to recycle. Work with dead stocks, design for second life. So we try and keep all of these considerations in our thought process when you kind of go ahead. Next slide. If you see there are, so in our research, we also tried to find out where are these repairers kept, and where are these repairers hiding. So we found a lot of them in the old city. And a few of the hoardings were very interesting, Kapda no doctor, and they had very interesting, and they had very quirky takes on, they had the understanding skill of mending really impossible kind of textiles. They kind of very seamlessly repair it. So those are called, those are very defined rufflers which exist, and they still exist, and their numbers are declining because this is not a recognized craft, and people do not really go to them directly anymore. So we need to have more of advocacy around having a lot of DIYs. We need to have a lot of these open-end source material. There's a lot of work done by Fashion Revolution, their DIYs are out there, and a lot of repair cafes that would help promote the culture of repairing. Next slide. I want everybody to say this with me. So I would want everybody to say this as an affirmation that we would like to share. Waste is a decision, repair is an act of resistance, accountability begins with us. Yes. Thank you so much. Alright, that's it from my side.
We'll take questions now. Anyone?
Hello, ma'am. I just wanted to ask, like, when we talk about sustainable fashion and all the studios that produce the sustainable clothes, they are usually at very expensive. Like, I just have this question that why are these products expensive?
A lot of, so I'll give an example of a brand that I've done a case study on. So this particular brand sells its clothing ranges from say around 12,000 to 15,000 is what they sell it, and it's usually targeted for an international market. What they do is, the process is very interesting. They use complete organic cotton, which has a certain certification, and when you have certifications in place, there is a fee that kind of goes to the agency. They also do hand stitch, that means carbon neutral garments. That means they do completely hand stitched garment using working with artisans. There's a recognition of the artisan. There is a transparency of how much they are paying to them. There is also a lot of interesting storytelling, and there is also an inclusiveness in the brand. So, and when the brand kind of tells the story out there, they kind of receive the kind of response from it. And sustainability also means that you need to consume lesser, so you invest wisely. Think of clothing as investments which are inclusive, so that they can stay, they are classic, and they can stay with you for a longer time. But yes, there is a range, because the materials are expensive, the process is expensive, and hence the pricing kind of goes up. And that's for somebody who's a designer. But as manufacturers, like a large scale manufacturers, I think if they have access to materials which are ethically sourced, and they can have an interesting price range which is affordable. So
So I mean, is it justified for these?
It is
products?
justified. It's up to you of how you have to feel that emotional connect.
Yeah, because then when we talk about sustainable fashion, it cannot be given or connected to the local level. Like not everybody can afford to that level. So sustainable fashion cannot
Not
be.
necessarily. You still have your craft. So again, you can't weigh sustainability just on the affordability. You can also have if they're doing if they're paying ethically to the brand and they're using a material which is natural, you can go ahead and buy it. It'll be cheaper in the perspective. So you have to decide what is the range of things that you really want. So thank you.
Being sustainable because they defer consumption.
Yeah.
Basically, you don't want you to buy it.
Yeah.
So the question is related to, like you told about the jeans, how much water it can consume while manufacturing. Is it possible that every sort of clothes what we buy, there has to be a water consumption either on an invoice or maybe on somewhere on tag, so at least we can understand that what we are buying and what we are not buying?
So a lot of these brands are now creating digital passports for their products. So they kind of in the interest of reaching the right market, they're putting out a digital passport. That means if you look at a cotton t-shirt, cotton is grown here in India, it's spun here, it's manufactured and then it's sold somewhere outside. It has a footprint. This is a new initiative that is just catching up where a brand is now putting out a digital passport services so that you know what are you buying actually. So there are these, you can look out for that.
I wanted to go back to her question.
Yes.
I'm somebody who hardly ever buys clothes. I get my clothes from my sister. Because I'm just not into malls and all that. But think of our nomadic communities, perhaps. Or times when people actually in their own villages made their own clothes.
Yes, it was an ecosystem.
That time it was not expensive. In fact, it was not expensive for them.
Yeah.
Right? So what the problem we are facing now is capitalism. The fact that we moved from homegrown, handmade to machine-made loom cloth. That's where the problem arose. I feel like sometimes if we go back in time and we balance that out, it would have been like small is beautiful. Schumacher said that also. You make locally, you sell locally, you use only local material, then your costs are very low.
Yes.
If you apply that to food now,
yes,
a lot of locally stuff. So, and over here, what we are facing the problem, and perhaps our market value and our rupee value and all of that comes into the picture where prices are high because of that. And I go back to nomadic communities and I think of them living in a very far away, dry landscape and they wear the most beautiful clothes that are handmade without a rate.
So those clothing that you're talking about are usually very zero-waste clothing. The way that pattern making is done is very comfortable. Like if you look at a Rabari blouse, it's made. It can be worn from size the age group of 12 to an older age because the embroidery is just in the front panel of it, and the rest of it can be expanded by just making some minor modification to it. So the idea is that these were sustainable design. So we get the students to kind of work with communities and try and come back with certain more patterns that can be implemented at a larger scale. But there's definitely a cost. Cotton is expensive now. It's really, really expensive now. And if you go for any kind of certification, it becomes really high. So that is something that is there. So
we'll take one last question.
Yes.
I wanted to go back to the pricing question that was asked. I work with handcrafted fabrics, khadi and promoted way. And one of these questions has been asked to us all the time, that how come khadi and handcrafted fabrics are so much more expensive? People don't see how, there are two things. One is the policy levels. Government subsidize hugely the mills and handlooms and all that. And that is one thing that creates a difference. The other thing is that all the mill fabrics, they use synthetic. Synthetic is of course much cheaper than the natural fabrics, so that also reduces the price. The third thing is that generally all the pollution cost, all the migration cost all the environmental, water, all those kind of consumption costs actually goes to the society. So we indirectly pay for it, but because of the kind of a skewed kind of economy, like the clothes that you buy that are more environmentally unfriendly, more sort of damaging to people's health, they are made cheaper, but actually the healthier stuff, something that really supports the community, supports the environment, supports the value, ethics, heritage, they are higher in price.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Risha. I feel like I should steal that presentation and use it for India Recycles every time somebody gives donations, because so we get almost 20 bags of clothes and other items, and primarily clothes. We take everything, but we get primarily clothes every week. And when they come, we have to sort of segregate them to look at what is something that we can sell and to which market, because we sell to both rich and poor, different classes, so to say, based on the fashion quotient. And I always joke with my staff that I want to do a show where every time I lift a garment, I tell a story. So that's how it happens. Right? There's a top which comes, which you wonder, why was it even designed? Who was wearing it? Then there'll be dresses that we can't even make out how they are put on, because they're like straps everywhere, buttons coming out of here. So it takes like 5 minutes to figure out, oh, this is a top and not a skirt. But so much of garments, so many of designs, and so much consumption. So we also tell our donors that if you really want to help us, eventually stop consuming, because just donating to us is not the answer. And exactly, a lot of the stuff that comes to us is also very hard to resell, because the design is so bohemian. I'm sorry about the designers in the room, but some of it is stuff that nobody in a slum is going to wear, nobody even in our middle upper class is going to wear. So yeah, I think this is a great presentation for us to actually send it to all our donors and say that as much as we love reselling your stuff, maybe not consume so much. We have come to the end of the 4th edition of AHMEDABAD Parlons, and I, for one, have been quite happy with the turnout, with the discussions, with our very, very vocal audience. We get amazing audience with great questions, great gumption. I want you to walk away with, I mean, everyone has probably a different takeaway from whatever you got. But think of actions, think of thoughts, think of connections you can make from here. And that is where, ma'am, your space is there to, talk to other people. In fact, we have somebody who met somebody here last year and actually ended up doing a few projects with them. Well, not just business, but also sort of get together in civic action. Maybe write a letter to your MLA, to your MP, to your ward councillor, if you even know who your ward councillor is. Something of that sort. That's what we envisage, that people walk away with some sense of what action they can take further. If you want to join us and work with us, we do a lot of workshops. We also do a little bit of activism on the side. You can check out our Instagram pages, connect with us. We do internships, fellowships. We have a lot of opportunities for young people particularly to engage and work with us. I'm going to close by calling somebody who runs a very active citizens group in Ahmedabad. And this is, well, I can tell you by the number of WhatsApp events I get every week that they're very active. It's called Tree Walks. And they work on understanding our ecology, whatever is around us. So, let's say if you're walking in Adawadi or if you're walking in Parli, what are the native species, what are the trees, what are the bushes, what are the shrubs you're surrounded by. They also do water walks when they talk of water conservation, and they actually develop rainwater harvesting plants, Khambati Kuwas, in the city. And because it's a very active citizens group, it's also something that if you get very inspired by, you can join, you can work with. So for the closing remarks today, I have Ms. Radhika Amin from SET. She runs ecological studios there, but she's also a very active member of the community who works with Tree Walks. I'm going to invite her to sort of talk about the work that they do, and it sort of closes our 2 days of talking and activism and action, so maybe we might actually be able to do something together. Over to you, Radhika.
Thank you so much. If it's okay, I'm going to talk in Gujarat. Yes. Yeah? Okay. Alright. So, I'm so sorry. Everyone's found me, I'm going to keep it short. What I want to talk about today is, we've heard about some
amazing ideas, a lot of inspiring thoughts, a lot of alarming thoughts. મારે આજે જેની વાત કરવી છે એ છે એઝ અ કોમન મેન વોટ કેન બી આપણે શું કરી શકીએ જ્યારે આપણે એક સામાન્ય નાગરિક છે. હું ટ્રી વોક્સ સંસ્થાની સાથે જોડાયેલી છું જે પ્રાકૃતિકની ઇન્ટર રિલેટેડ ઘણી બધી વસ્તુઓમાં કામ કરી રહ્યું છે. આમ જનતાની ઘણી મૂંઝવણી હોય છે, પ્રાકૃતિક સમસ્યાઓ હોય છે, આનો ઉકેલ કેવી રીતે કરી શકીએ એની વાત અમે કરીએ છીએ. થોડા વર્ષોથી અમે એક વિચાર કર્યો છે કે અમદાવાદને આરો મુક્ત કેવી રીતે બનાવી શકીએ. અમદાવાદને આરો મુક્ત કેવી રીતે બનાવી શકીએ. અમદાવાદનું પાણી પીવાલાયક તો છે, ચોખ્ખું છે, સ્વચ્છ છે, પણ શું આ પાણી સ્વસ્થ છે? આ સવાલ અમે પૂછી રહ્યા છીએ. જવાબ અમને મળ્યો વરસાદી પાણીમાં. કોણમાં ઘણા વર્ષોથી ટાંકાની વ્યવસ્થા છે જે આપણા ઘર આંગણે પાણી સ્ટોર કરે છે, કન્ઝર્વ કરે છે અને જે આપણે ઓવર ટાઈમ વાપરી શકીએ. વરસાદી પાણીના ઘણા ફાયદા છે. આ સાદી ભાષામાં કહીએ તો સોફ્ટ છે, આમાં લો TDS છે અને આ કારણે તેના ઘણા આરોગ્ય માટેના બેનિફિટ્સ છે. તે B12 લેવલ, pH, બેલેન્સ ઓફ બ્લડ જાળવે છે. આમાં વધારે રિસર્ચ ચાલુ છે, હું ટેકનિકલ ક્લેમ્સ નથી કરતી. વાળ અને ત્વચાની મુલાયમતા વધારે છે. ઓન અ સાઇડ નોટ, અમદાવાદ વરસાદી પાણી સાચવશે અને વાપરશે તો દરેક જણના ઘરમાં ગુલાબનું છોડ ઉગશે. આ ઉગાડવું જોઈએ કે નહીં અલગ વસ્તુ છે, પણ પાણીની ક્વોલિટી એટલી સારી હશે. જસ્ટ ટુ ગેટ યુ ઓન. પાણીની બીજી વાતમાં એ છે કે પાણીની બીજી વાતમાં ભૂગર્ભ જળ આવે છે. જેમ જેમ સોઇલ જીઓલોજી અને જૂની પ્રણાલી સમજતા ગયા તેમ તેમ અમને સમજાતું ગયું કે અમારે પ્રશાસનની સાથે સાથે લોકો સાથે કામ કરવાની જરૂર છે. છેલ્લા કેટલાક વર્ષોમાં આપણી પાણીની સમસ્યા વધતી જાય છે. ઉનાળામાં પાણીની અછત પડે છે અને વરસાદની સિઝનમાં પાણીનો ઓવરફ્લો થાય છે. આપણું પાણી ક્યાં તો ખૂબ દૂરથી આવે છે, કપરમાંનું પાણી, ક્યાં તો ખૂબ ઊંડાઈથી આવે છે. આ વસ્તુને એડ્રેસ કરવાની જરૂર છે. શું કરવું, કેવી રીતે કરવું, કોણ કરી શકે અને ક્યારે કરી શકાય જેવા જુદા જુદા પ્રશ્નોના જવાબ શોધવા અને સમજવાના જરૂરી હતા. ગ્રામીણ વિસ્તારોમાં ઘણી વારસાગત પ્રણાલી હજી પણ કાર્યરત છે. ગામડામાં વરસાદ માણી શકાય છે જ્યારે શહેરમાં એ જ એક અવ્યવસ્થા બની જાય છે. શું અર્બન એરિયાઝમાં વરસાદને માણી શકાય? આ પ્રશ્ન ઉપર કામ કરતું અમારું વોટર એક્શન ગ્રુપ છે જે છેલ્લા કેટલાક સમયથી ખંભાતી કુવા ઉપર અને બીજી પ્રેક્ટિકલ અને ટ્રાન્સપરન્ટ ઘણી સિસ્ટમ્સ પર કામ કરી રહ્યું છે. What is a ખંભાતી કુવા? So yeah, this one. જમીનની સપાટીનું જે પાણી છે એને પીવડાવવા માટેની એક બહુ સરળ રીત છે. 12 ફીટ ડાયામીટર અને 12 ફૂટ ડાયામીટર અને 30 ફૂટની ઊંડાઈનો આ કૂવો બને છે. અમદાવાદની જીઓલોજીને સપોર્ટ કરે છે કારણ કે મોસ્ટ ઓફ ધ એરિયાઝમાં અમદાવાદમાં 30 ફૂટે રેતાળ જમીન મળે છે. એટલે સરફેસ ગ્રાઉન્ડ વોટરને આ રીતે આપણે આગળ ઉતારી શકીએ. એક કૂવો in the first year 75,000 liters approximately per hour પાણી પી શકે છે. આ પાણી જ્યારે આપણે ઉતારીએ છીએ 30 ફૂટે ત્યારે નેચરલી ફિલ્ટર થઈ અને એક્વિફરમાં મળી જાય છે. If we go next, ભીમાનગરમાં 2002માં આ કૂવો બનેલો છે. ખાસો મોટો છે આ કૂવો અને એ લોકોને ઘણા ફાયદા થયા છે. ઓવર ટાઈમ ઇટ્સ યુઝ હેઝ રિડ્યુસ બટ બહુ બધા બેનિફિટ્સ છે ઇન ટર્મ્સ ઓફ ઇટ હેઝ અફેક્ટેડ TDS. ઇટ હેઝ પાણીનો જે પ્રોબ્લેમ થતો હતો એ લોકોને સમર સિઝનમાં એના માટે એ લોકોને ફાયદો થયો છે આ સિસ્ટમ. નેક્સ્ટ એક્ઝામ્પલ ઇઝ ધીસ. આ એશિયા ઇંગ્લિશ સ્કૂલનું અસેમ્બલી એરિયા છે. આમાં 1 કે 2 ઇંચ વરસાદ વરસાદ પડે ત્યારે આમના ત્યાં અહીંયા ઘૂંટણ જેટલું પાણી થઈ જાય અને 2 દિવસની રજા આપવી પડે. ખંભાતી કુવા 2 બનાવ્યા છે લોકોએ. એના પછી 8 ઇંચીસ વરસાદમાં પણ આ અસેમ્બલી હોલમાં પાણી નથી ભરાયું. સેડલી સ્ટુડન્ટ્સની રજા આવે નથી. અમદાવાદે છેલ્લા 5 વર્ષમાં 100 જેટલા ખંભાતી કુવા બનાવ્યા છે અલગ અલગ સોસાયટીમાં. ઘણી સોસાયટીઓ આ કામ સેલ્ફલેસલી કરે છે, નિસ્વાર્થ ભાવે કરે છે. જેમ કે સ્વાગત ગ્રીન ગ્રીનમાં અમે હમણાં બનાવ્યો, નવીનભાઈ કરીને છે કે એમને એમના જાત ઉપર લીધું કે હું સોસાયટીને કન્વિન્સ કરીશ અને આ વસ્તુ અમે કરીશું. એમને કોઈ વોટર લોગિંગનો પ્રોબ્લેમ નથી, પણ જસ્ટ એક્ટ કે પાણી જે અમારા સોસાયટીમાં આવે છે અમે અંદર ઉતારીશું. આ વર્ષ અને દરેક વર્ષે 39 લાખ લીટર્સ 39 લાખ લીટર પાણી એ લોકો એવરી યર ઉતારી શકે. જ્યાં જગ્યાની અછત છે ત્યાં શું કરીએ? there are lot of basements. આપણા ત્યાં બેઝમેન્ટ્સ હવે વધી ગયા છે, ત્યાં ખંભાતી કુવો કેવી રીતે છે એટલે એના માટે એક અલગ સિસ્ટમ ડિવાઇસ કરી છે. મોટાભાગે આપણે પાણી ખેંચતા જ હોય છે, દરેક સોસાયટી ખેંચે છે. એટલે એમાં આપણે જે ટેરેસનું પાણી છે આપણું જે ક્લીન છે, થોડું પાણી જવા દઈએ છીએ, પછી જે ક્લીન પાણી મળે પીવા લાયક હોય છે એ પાણીને બોરમાં ઉતારી દઈએ છીએ. નાનકડી સિસ્ટમ કરવી પડે છે. તમે જુઓ છો નેક્સ્ટ ફોટોમાં સિમ્પલ ફિલ્ટર્સ છે, લોકો જાતે વાપરી શકે છે. આઈડિયા બીઇંગ કે સિમ્પલ હોય, ટ્રાન્સપરન્ટ હોય, થોડો ખાનાનો કચરો ભેગો થયો તો જાતે સાફ કરી શકાય. એટલે અમે આવી બધી સિસ્ટમ્સ સાથે કામ કરીએ છીએ. This is just one of it. Treeworks has 18 such parallels. જે અલગ અલગ ક્ષેત્રોમાં કામ કરે છે, જેમ કે આરોગ્ય, શહેરી ખેતી, પાણી, માટી, ક્લીનિંગ, હરિયાળી, etc. Next. Yeah, if you want to get connected to us, this is the details. હું આ ટોકને ફિનિશ કરવા માંગુ છું એક વિચારથી. આપણી રોજિંદી જીવનશૈલીમાં આપણે ઘણીવાર પર્યાવરણમાં થતા ફેરફારો જોઈ શકીએ છીએ. આ નાના હોઈ શકે કે મોટા હોઈ શકે. તો આપણા જેવા સામાન્ય નાગરિકો આ વિષય માટે શું કરી શકે? આપણે કેવી રીતે પગલાં લઈ શકીએ? જવાબ ખૂબ સરળ છે અને આજની તમામ all 4 talks talked about this. I think પહેલી વાત એ છે કે પર્યાવરણના મુદ્દાને ધ્યાનપૂર્વક સમજો. Do a lot of research or take help from people who are doing research. તેને ઉકેલવામાં થોડો સંઘર્ષ આવશે, પણ આમાં કોઈ તક શોધો. Find opportunities in all the struggles that you have. અને ત્રીજી અને સૌથી મોટો મુદ્દો એ છે કે કંઈક કરો. You do whatever you can. Take action. I think with this I end. It was wonderful to be a part of the
રાધિકાજી, તમારો ખૂબ ખૂબ આભાર. એક્સેન્ટ ઓફ માય ગુજરાતી. Khambati Kuva, by the way, is an excellent idea and a low budget idea. It is not that expensive to make. It can be customized to your building size, to your basement size. So whether you live in an apartment or in an individual bungalow, you can actually talk to your building people or household or family and do this. This will ensure that the water is not in your road, but actually in a tank somewhere which can be used. As we come to the end of today's talk series, there is chai, by the way, outside, because we've been sitting here for 2 hours, so I'm sure people want to chat more and stretch. You can go out, you can check out the panels about our heat action campaign, you can check out the seconds collection to see what kind of stuff that people donate. I want to honor the speakers with a little token of appreciation, and in the interest of sustainability, we've ensured that whatever's inside is second hand. So speakers, if you're not used to wearing or looking at second-hand stuff, too bad. You're going to have to start doing that now. We picked up books. We get a lot of donations in books. So we picked up books that we thought each one of you would like. And we picked up a few items that we have made from the Scarlet clothing. So I'm going to actually ask some of my team members to come and honor them, because these people have worked tirelessly for the last 1 month and I want to honor them as well. Can I ask Dhara to come here and give a token of appreciation to Rohit? designer from MSU. So whatever clothing comes in, since I can't even literally put needle and thread together, she's the person who actually looks at what can be upcycled how. Can I ask Ramdev if he's here, our operations person?
Ramdev is here.
Ramdev is here. Can I ask him?
Ramdev?
Ramdev Bhai is our main operations person, so whether it's collections, whether it is dealing with communities, since we sell in across 25 locations in Ahmedabad, Ramdev is the person who does that.
You want to talk about this story?
Ramdev, आप दे सकते हैं token of appreciation to Mansi. Mansi is excited by. So Ramdev is also the person. I know that exactly. So whenever you have donations, we have collection points throughout the city. By the way, you can volunteer to become a collection point if you're a house or a corporate. Mansi's apartment in Khaltej is one of the donation locations. So they know each other because Ramdev picks up donations every Wednesday. Thank you so much. Can I ask Bhargavi to come, who's our very shy behind the scenes person? You might have met her on the registration desk. She's the person who manages everything behind the scenes, the unseen sort of person running India Recycles, to give a small token of appreciation to Risha. And I'm going to ask the person who's been trying to convince to model all our clothes, our newest joinee, Nadish, to come and give a small token of appreciation to Deepani. So the relationship between India Recycles or ASP or Mazur.co with Elion Stronce goes back to 6 years now. But we also have another special bridge or connection in the form of somebody who is both Elion Stronce and India Recycles, because he's one of our most active volunteers and he has a very, very strong work ethic. So even I'm scared of him when he comes to our sorting or running of our events, because he judges everything, how each clothing is folded, how it is put everywhere. In fact, we made a video of him folding a t-shirt. This was done so perfectly that none of my staff or volunteers have ever done it. Can I ask Rodolphe to come on stage and give a token of appreciation to Radhika? Radhika is still around. You've been an absolutely delightfully wonderful audience, very patient. We actually thought we might break the session in two, but then we figured it will be very hard to get you guys back inside if there's more chai and snacks outside. So we're going to end the session at this stage with the hope that when we leave this room, all of us, we will be driving our cars, I know that, back to wherever we came from, but maybe we take more action towards a more sustainable earth and a more sustainable Ahmedabad to begin with. Kanjan, do you want to? Yes, Kanjan always has the last word.
Practically not like this. I'm going to use the stage. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming for this particular event and making it this huge success. I'm not going to take your time. I'm going to make it very, very easier. At Island Sponsors, we create this kind of events every month. Our premises, which you are seeing at the moment, and the postal building which we have, it's open for generalized public. 99.99% of what we do here, it's completely free for everybody in Ahmedabad. Okay, so please come for our events, please support us, and we are more than open for any possible tie-ups. And with that being said, I would like to invite you all for our annual musical festival called Vidala Music, which is going to happen in 21st June. So all of you are invited for it. You just need to book your registration tickets, which will be outside. We have our kakimonos there, so you can scan the code and book for it. And we do more and more events like this. You have a teeny tiny magazine in your hand, which is Day to Read, which is a bi-monthly magazine. You get complete idea about our events, our educational activities, everything. Last thing, as everybody says, I need to make it a positive remark. So I'm working at Island Sponsors since last 2 years, and I'm a student here for last 3 years. I'm unfortunately, I'm leaving India very soon. I'm going for my further studies in France. Since we are talking about sustainability, So way back years ago, my grandmother made a godri kind of a thing, a small blanket. And as a child, I always used to ask her that, why we are still keeping this? We have money, can't we buy new things? And she was just like, no, one day you want to know. And I asked that same question to my mom, that why we are keeping this? No, like, not, she's not here now. And she's like, one day you want to know this. That's the only thing which I'm taking to France. So everyone of us should do that. Thank you so much. There's so much going on that I was talking about. Thank you so much, everybody.